Hello there. It is Erick Erickson. Delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I'm going to spend a little more time here, and I didn't set out to sermonize today, but I guess that's where I find myself. You'll have to forgive me, but there's a point to be made. When the Israelites are taken into exile into Babylon, through the prophet Jeremiah, God sends them a love letter. And basically says, after 70 years, I'll come back. You'll come back. You'll go home. In the meantime, he says to them, seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare. New International Version says, seek the prosperity of where you are in exile, and there you will prosper. We are, all of us, myself included, worked up so much on a daily basis about the goings-on in Washington, D.C., and the truth of the matter is Washington, D.C. affects us far less on a daily basis than our local community. Joe Biden is not out filling potholes in your community. He's not teaching your kids. He's not even really shaping the local curriculum of your school. Neither is your congressman, neither is your senator. None of them are. Your local city council has a greater daily impact on you than Washington, D.C. and all of its regulators and bureaucracy. Your local school board has a profound impact on you. Your county commission has a profound impact on you. In fact, your property taxes that you're so upset about have more to do with your county commission than your state government. And yet, so many of us on a daily, perpetual basis are fixated focused like a laser on Washington, D.C., and all of our social ills come from Washington, D.C. All the problems in America are originating in Washington, D.C., and that's not true. I, as a talk radio show host, I focus on Washington because, it's the gift that keeps on giving. For talk radio shows, whether it's the age of Trump or the age of Biden, the age of Obama, my goodness gracious, there's so much material from Washington, D.C., and now I've taken a show that was an Atlanta, Georgia show. I spread it out across the state of Georgia, and now I'm spreading it out across the nation. And so it becomes harder for me on a daily basis to talk about the goings-on in a small community in my state because people 5 states over, they don't know that community. It's relevant in Forsyth County, Georgia, which is a highly Republican conservative county. They're having a meeting tonight, apparently, about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Hallmarks of critical race theory, and here's what they do. Here's what happens with local school boards around the country now. Local school boards around the country, they say diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't critical race theory, but the very language comes from critical race theory. There is, by the way, if you're listening on WSB in Atlanta, there is a special election today in Cobb County for House District 34. These sorts of things matter. Seek the welfare of your local community. Go vote for your local state representative. If you live in Cobb County, House District 34, go vote for your local state representative. Seek the welfare of the community in which you live, and there you will find your welfare. And so many of us forget. So many of us don't pay attention. So many of us ignore what happens in our local community. By the way, if you're in House District 34, go vote for Devin Seaball. But y'all, I know Washington gets us all worked up. I know Washington fires us up. Washington gives us a lot to talk about. But You can run for your local school board and have an easier time getting elected than trying to run for Congress. And you can have a real world measurable impact in your local community by running for school board, by running for city council, by running for county commission. You can have a real world measurable impact by showing up to your local government. Tonight, if you're in Forsyth County, Georgia, show up at the local school board meeting. If you're in Cobb County, go vote today. Stop thinking everything is out of your hands, because we've embraced the conspiracy that it doesn't matter what we do, no man alone can change society, and yet you can with the simple act of going to a ballot box and voting, with the simple act of going to a meeting and speaking up and making your concerns heard in a smart, educated, intelligent way. You shape public opinion. It's in your hands. We are a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, whether you want to believe that or not. There is not some mysterious hand pulling the strings. The further you believe in the conspiracy theory, the more you give yourself license to abdicate your own responsibility. And that's what's happening. People want to abdicate their own responsibility in favor of other people. I can do nothing. It's the lobbyists. It's Facebook. It's social media. They're censoring me. They can't censor your butt when you show up at the meeting and speak, because you're there. Your performance online and your railing on Facebook is impotent rage. Your showing up at the meeting to be seen as a voter matters. Seek the welfare of the community in which you live and pray for it, and there you will find your welfare. How many of you go to your city council meeting? How many of you go to your planning association meeting, your neighborhood association? How many of you go to your council meetings or for county commission? How many of you go to your school board meeting? How many of you know your state representative? How many of you know your state senator? How many of you pay attention to what's going on in the state legislature? You're so focused on Washington, D.C. and the real fights to be had in your community. You want to change Washington, you change your local community. You get good people elected, they become the farm team for the future of politics. Seek the future, seek the welfare of the city in which you live. Whether you're in North Carolina or South Carolina or Georgia or Texas or California or Oregon or Washington, Alaska, Hawaii, the real fights to be had are there. Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, where I am, Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, Doug Ducey, governor of Arizona, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, they're filing suit after suit against the federal government, and they're having a real-world impact when it comes to prescription drugs, when it comes to Obamacare, when it comes to drilling, when it comes to energy, when it comes to prices, when it comes to so much. They're filing lawsuits, they're fighting federal regulators. You're having a real-world impact by participating in the politics of your local community and the politics of your state, more so than Washington, D.C. You're not going to persuade the bureaucrat in Washington, but you're going to persuade the school board member who needs your vote. And we're seeing it work. In the Carroll Independent School District in Texas, they began to inspire the rest of the nation. Parents showing up, organizing, throwing off the school board people who embrace critical race theory. And now it's spread to other states. It's happening here in Georgia. It's happening in Mississippi. It's happening in Maine. It's happening now in Minnesota all of a sudden. One started the trend for everyone else. And there's something else here. It's not the impotent rage. That's something people seem to be missing as well. It's not the impotent rage. So many people are so fired up on impotent rage. And they get on Facebook and they blast me or they blast you or they blast a politician and they feel real good and they write in all caps and they bang it out on a keyboard. And then what do? Nothing. You don't have to fire off angry tweets or be on Facebook. You actually show up at the meetings. You know, the Democrats have a problem that the Republicans don't really have. The Democrats are actually captured to some degree by Twitter. Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, the analysis of their campaign failures in 2020 were that they were so much more focused on the conversations on Twitter, they forgot that Twitter's not the real world. And we see this now. Nancy Pelosi is scared to death of the Twitter reaction. Were she to censor Ilhan Omar, Were she to go after Ilhan Omar? Nancy Pelosi's scared of the Twitter feed. Josh Kraushaar from National Journal. I cite him regularly here. He's one of the best, I think, fair-minded pundits out there. He works for National Journal. Listen to him.
Well, John, Pelosi is afraid of her own base. She's not going to kick off Congresswoman Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee because she doesn't want to get criticized by the squad's Twitter feed. And that is sort of the story of the Democratic Party with the squad gaining more and more influence within the party. You have the majority of Democrats that are just alarmed at what Omar is saying, what she tweeted. I mean, think about it. A few years ago, the notion of any congresswoman comparing U.S. troops to the Taliban, comparing Israel to a terrorist group, Hamas, would have been grounds for censure, maybe even, immediate expulsion from these committees. Instead, what we're seeing is the base having more and more influence, where even her critics, even Omar's critics within the Democratic Party are sort of tiptoeing around what she said because they're so sort of privately alarmed at the implications of what she means. They're sort of an anti-Americanism, a blame America first subtext within her comments.
They're scared to death of angry people on Twitter. And in being scared to death of the angry people on Twitter, they're kind of losing touch with America because the people on Twitter, they may be Americans, but they are not America. They are a select subset of Americans. Do you know, on Twitter, my Twitter followers, I've gone down from 221,000 Twitter followers to 198,000 Twitter followers. And it's not people unsubscribing me. It's Twitter unsubscribing them from following me. And there is a great conspiracy theory now on the right that Twitter is slowly deleting our Twitter followers. That's not really it. I don't believe the conspiracy theory. What it is all of the fake accounts, all of the soapboxes, all of the multiple accounts for one person, all of the spam bots. Twitter is rife with this. And if Twitter is now deleting those people, those are the echo chamber created to harass and cajole. They're not the people who show up at the committee. They're not the people who knock on the door. They're not the people who go to the meeting. If you're angry about the direction of the country, you're angry about the state of your community, you're angry about critical race theory, you're angry about your kids being forced to learn they're oppressors or they're always perpetually oppressed. I was talking to a black lady the other day who listens to this program, who is horrified that her kids have been learning that they can never get ahead in this country. And that's how she interprets critical race theory, that her kids, that the whole system is stacked against them, that the whole system is racist, that white supremacy is involved in everything, and her kids are perpetually oppressed by whitey. She's like, I don't want my kids to learn that stuff. And I agree with her. She's gotten ahead, and she had to work hard. She's experienced racism. She says she's experienced racist. She hasn't experienced a racist system. Racists are a problem. The system is not. The system that elected Barack Obama is not racist. The system that elected Kamala Harris is not racist. But there are racists out there, and she has experienced them. And she says the biggest thing she sees right now is the racism within a school system that tells her black child, you can't get ahead because whitey had something to do with it. And these people, these neo-racists, she's willing to fight back. She's now withdrawn her kid from a public school. She's sending her kid to a private school. She's taking advantage of the Opportunity Scholarship in Georgia, where you can basically get money to help send your kid to a private school from the government. She got involved. She heard me talk about it on this program. And she wanted to thank me for talking about it because she knew it was available. She did not know it was available before, and her kid is going to a private school now. And she has stood up and she has gone to her local school board and she's talked about this. She got involved at the local level. She didn't call her congressman. She didn't call her senator. She didn't go knocking on doors for Republicans or Democrats running for federal office. She didn't care about Joe Biden. She didn't care about Donald Trump. To my knowledge, it never came up. She cared locally about her local community. She cared locally about her kids. She cared locally about getting her kids a good education locally. We get so fixated, so worked up on Washington, D.C., and yet conservatives are having a real-world impact at the local level because they're being seen in their community, they're getting involved, they're showing up at school board meetings, they're taking on left-wing orthodoxy, and the local communities around the country are paying attention, and they're starting to say, hey, you know what? I think I'm with them. I'm not with those other guys. I think I'm with the people who have the backs of the police, not the people who hate the police. I think I'm with the people who don't want our kids to be told they're oppressed or oppressors. I'm with those people. And they're changing hearts and minds of the local community. They're not just focused on Washington, D.C. You need to show up. You need to be involved at your local level. Seek the welfare of the community in which you live, because there you're going to find your welfare. You might as well go out and find it right now. Go to your local school board meeting. Go to your city council meeting. Go to your county commission meeting. Stop just railing about Washington, D.C. Washington affects you less on a daily basis than all these other groups. So if you want to get involved, start local.
Well connected and well respected. It's